Okay, so hopefully the fourth time's the charm with this speech. I accidentally just recorded it as a time lapse, so here we go. The first video we watched was called Do Schools Kill Creativity? The main point was that creativity is as important as literacy, and our speaker says that creativity is the process of having original ideas that have value. His speech was extremely effective, and the first tool he used was by finding common ground with his audience in the beginning. He said, I think we all have an interest in education. Now, he said this at an education conference, so he knew he was going to get everybody on the same page of why they were there talking to each other and sharing these ideas. The second thing he did to make his speech so effective was something we learned about in our textbook. Something the author had said was that it takes so much less energy to, sit down and watch a comedy program than it takes to listen to a lecture. You have to put energy in. But our speaker for this video held our attention through comedy. Instead of having a dry lecture just because he was talking about an educational topic, he decided to bring the comedy hour to us. And it was very attention grabbing. So it's important to note that his anecdotes, however, the main points always supported his argument. And by the end, everyone was engaged and also agreed with him. It is important to note that TED Talks and speeches are something that the deliverer of the speech is passionate about, and you can really see that in how much effort they put into their speeches. The second video we watched, called We Should All Be Feminists, follows a similar pattern by giving anecdotes. Our speaker finishes them, each small story, with a strong line, like, culture does not matter. Sorry, that's not what it meant. Culture does not make people. People make culture. That's such a strong line, and it really drives the point home. She also has the core of her speech, feminism, right there in the title. You know what you're signing up for when you start listening to this speech. And she starts off, her first anecdote is about the first time she was called a feminist. And by the end of the speech, she circled around to that same story, tying everything together. She says she looks up the definition of feminism in the dictionary, and after the stories of her life experience, gives her own definition of feminism. It's an extremely effective way of tying her speech together. Now, my next video that I chose this time was by Candace Watts Smith, and her speech title also told you exactly from the beginning what you are signing up for when you turn this on. It's called 3 Myths About Racism That Keep the U.S. from Progress. So she told you right there, 3 myths, the 3 bullet point structure. This is such a good idea to structure your speech this way, because when you're done with the speech, you can jot down what were the 3 things you learned from this speech. Put down the 3 main points. If you're telling someone later about what the speech was about, give them 3 bullet points. Candace Watts Smith gives those 3 bullet points in the speech. What are the important takeaways? It is a great example to watch this video and see how important a subject is. This woman devoted her life. She gave her personal stories. She wrote 2 books. This is such an important topic, and it's so important to everyone in that room to listen and learn. And there is a tremor in her voice when she's talking, because of course she's nervous, but that nervousness is relatable, and we want to hear, as listeners, what she has to say. It doesn't take away from her speech that her voice trembles, because she keeps talking in a strong way anyways. The next video I watched was called The Trans Story Includes You. The natural narrative flow of this story is one that anyone can recognize in a narrative. You learn that story structure in middle school. The introduction, 3 body paragraphs, and the conclusion. Each body paragraph having a beginning, a middle, and an end. Now, that does sound like a basic way of putting a story together, but because it's so familiar to us, we're able to recognize the amazing way that she smoothly delivered and strongly worded her narrative. It seemed professional and nuanced, even though we knew the structure from any time we ourselves write a narrative. And so that was the main takeaway, that even if you don't have a nuanced structure, you can make the story flow smoothly with the words you choose. And our speaker did an amazing job. She did it wonderfully. Why are stolen African artifacts still in Western museums was my third and final video that I chose to watch. Our speaker was an artist and a storyteller, and what I loved about his speech was the flow of his words and the artistic visuals that he used. It showed you who he is, not just with this information he was sharing, but also the way he was sharing it with us. It made a whole new layer to this identity that we learned about just within these 8 minutes of watching a video. It made the story that much more interactive. So this TED Talk had no live audience, which is hard because usually in a TED Talk at a speaker's main point, there's applause and there's cheering and you can tell that people get it. But with this, he was filmed in a studio, and so it was up to him to put emphasis on those main points, and he did that through moving visuals that accompanied his talking. That was a really cool thing to watch, because before I had only been watching TED Talks that were performed live on a stage with live audience right there. My main 3 takeaways from this lesson, so 3 bullet points, is that if you're an artist, use that art to express yourself in your speaking. It comes across so strongly and it really adds to the conversation. The title should be the core of your story. People should know right off the bat what it is that you're talking about. And to speak about what you're passionate about, because putting in all that work for a speech, you want to be proud of it, and you want to know that it matters not just to you, but that you can contribute to the narrative that you're giving to the world. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. I'm Carly Vieta, and this is the TED Talk assignment for public speaking.